Welcome back, everyone. We're here for the finals, and you might be looking and thinking, hang on, there's a new caster there, and we are joined by a special guest for the final, Christopher. Welcome to the stage.
Very excited to be here.
I mean, the reason why you're here is obviously you're very knowledgeable in Pokemon, but there's a little bit of interest here for you in the finals.
Just a little bit. I do happen to know one of the finalists decently
Oh,
well.
so do you want to tell the people at home who in the final are you rooting for a little bit?
Well, I hesitate to say this, but Alex is my brother. There is, a lot of history there, to say the least.
A little bit of history, yeah.
A little bit.
And what have you been doing at the event while you've been here?
I've been one of the Master Assistant head judges, so I've been busy all weekend. Up to this point, today I had a great day over in side events, and always an awesome time, always an awesome part of the event. But
yeah, you flew all the way over from America for this event as well.
Yes, we are here from America. European regionals are always their own special little different thing. Truly an awesome time.
And this is the first ever regional here in Warsaw. We had over 700 participants, so a massive event here, and now we're only down to 2. In this final, we have Pedro and Alex, both fought valiantly the whole way through that Swiss, and they're going to be left over in the final. Do you want to talk us through a little bit of the decks that we're going to be seeing?
Well, as I think you guys have seen already today, we're going to have Alex with a Giratina Lost Box. Something I know he didn't actually play any games with before the tournament with his final list.
Oh, wow.
On the other side, as you just saw in top 4, Pedro with the more traditional Lost Box variant. Something we've seen have a lot of success in this metagame so far. In this last major event for the Lost Origin format, not surprising to see the Lost Zone at the top here.
And a lot of variations in the Lost Box, with this one being the Charizard variant, where we sometimes see Greninja involved, sometimes we see the Mirage Gate integrated in, but this is more that I want to switch as many times, get as many flower selectings off as possible, and then that Drapion in there just as reaction to the Mew VMAX doing so well in Lille.
Mew is out there, it's true.
So here we are, we see them on the stage, Pedro on the left there, Alex on the right. And this is going to be a very close match as we look to cross this whole Lost Origin meta. 50-50 it seems to be.
Yeah, statistically, we were looking at it before the match. That is what is shaken out to be so far on this format. I expect an even match here. We'll be curious to see what happens. Yeah,
and the advantage we've got here in the final is there's guaranteed to be a result. During the Swiss, when it's a 50-50, we've seen a lot of ties throughout the tournament, especially on the mainstream.
They certainly happen.
But in this final, we will get a guaranteed result. We'll find out a victor here as we go into the final of the Warsaw Regional. This is going to be the greatest match of today, the most on the line, lots of prizes to be won, and lots of points to be gained.
Certainly so.
So we see the starting basic there, and just a little bit of a decision here for Pedro.
Yeah, trying to see that okay. First thought he had just that mana feed. That would have been quite unfortunate for Pedro, but...
Yeah, we could also see the Cramorant has been an amazing option early on in the games for these players, but then the Comfey really is the dream starter for the Lost Box.
It is both of these players looking for that Comfey here. Nothing else would be quite as good.
And we've been appreciating the markers on the table this whole weekend, and you can see those wonderful Comfey markers on the side of Pedro. Looks like Pedro will be going first here, gets the Echoing Horn off the draw. Not so good at this early stage of the game. Just looking to find ways into that Comfey early on, and it doesn't look to be an instant play here.
No, the hand does not look particularly playable. And I
dear. Oh dear, this is stalling.
This Cramorant mirror is not looking so good for Pedro at the moment.
So we see just nothing in the hand, trying to work out if there's something that can be done here for Pedro. These guys know these decks inside out, and the first hand's often just about searching out Comfey, get them into the active, starting that Lost Zone, building the numbers up to try and hit those big numbers, in particular the 4 for the Cramorant, and then eventually that 10 for the Lost Mine of Sableye. But just an attachment of the fire energy there, prepping for a potential retreat of the Cramorant. Only one retreat needed, so that could be banked useful in the future.
It's an option for the future, for sure.
But that's got to be a pretty tense moment.
Yeah, that is it for Pedro.
So for these players, when they're playing on the finals like this, and sometimes it does go this way with Pokemon, right? You sometimes just have no options available in your first hand. What's that going to do for these players in terms of pressure?
Oh, I mean, the pressure's on here. In a match where this 75 minutes might not be enough to finish all 3 games. You see yourself, when game 1 goes in a bad way quickly, you put yourself in a position where you really are looking to come back quickly or quickly look toward game 2, especially Pedro and Alex.
Yeah, and we see Alex here with that first deck search, looking to find the right options to start that Comfey chain. Has now 2 in play. We'll look to start cycling them through, maybe using some of those scoop up nets or escape ropes, switch out in there. air balloons available, so many switch outs available for the Lost Box. And anything right now to get that Lost Zone up to that sweet number of 4 will be great to start that Cramorant attack onto the Manaphy.
And Alex taking the first prize here would be big in this matchup. With him playing the Pokemon V and only the single prize Pokemon for Pedro, taking that first prize is an important part of Alex's game plan.
So there's going to be 2 flower selectings on board. Now that Corals experiment really important. If not, has to go through 4 of the flower selectings, which isn't ideal, but will hit all of them. It's whether they can get that final switch out afterwards. So just waiting here. Switch is available.
Yep.
4th flower selecting.
Close.
Okay, so we see a Cramorant to Battle VIP pass. Just taking the time, making sure they make the right option here.
Always harder on turn 1 when that VIP pass is live, but Alex goes for the Cramorant here.
Okay, knows that the Cramorant route is probably going to be the likely route, which was often what we see here with the Giratina V-Star when up against Lost Box.
Exactly, yeah. Like I said earlier, that single prize turn really is what's important.
Yeah, got to try and match that single prize matchup with your own single prize options, which is why we've seen so much success for Giratina V-Star, having so many different options. And we see a scoop instantly there from Pedro, recognizing there wasn't an option available. Not what you want to see in the final, but it does go that way sometimes.
No, that is a rough feeling being in Pedro's spot there. You know, you never want to go down 0-1 in a series, let alone something so quickly. You know, it can be demoralizing. I'm sure Pedro, you know, he's been here before. He'll take it in stride. But
I mean, Pedro, how many times have you been up to the top in those finals?
Yeah, you know, quite a few. I think he's competing here for his 2nd regional title, if I had that correct. So he's certainly experienced in this space. I would expect he'll be back.
Yeah, and that's it. When you go on these feature tables and you make it to the finals, so much of these moments, it happens. We play a card game. There is variance. You're going to have those bad starts sometimes.
Yep.
And for him, if he can just stay level-headed going into that next game and avoid making silly mistakes off the back of it. Also, these guys are going to be tired. It's a long, old event. You know, we've had long days playing for, well, this will be their 18th match now, right?
Yeah, it's 17, 18. It's up there. Yep.
Yeah, so they're going to be tired as well. So tired, a frustrating first game, but will be bouncing back into the second one, gets to choose whether to go first or second. What's the prime option here for a Lost Box?
You know, I would expect Pedro to be looking to go first here and get that extra head start and putting things in the Lost Zone. He has a lot of time here for game 2 and 3, so I would expect he's going to look to play that game out. We should see him have the option to play 2 full games here. Yeah,
and the advantage with Lost Box, first is optimal. Second, you still have that Cramorant available if things go that way.
Exactly.
So one of the advantages of the Lost engine is first and second both have value. That Cramorant spit innocently for 110. Always good on turn 2. But you see a nice big deep breath there from Pedro as he starts off game 2 here in the final.
That Manaphy is back.
Yeah, Manaphy back. Let's look at these prizes coming in from Alex. We didn't really get a chance to talk about them in the last game. It was almost over before it started. And we see 1 Cramorant there in the prizes. Alex only placed 2, but we'll be able to find another one. And everything else is something that's in high enough count. Maybe the boss might come in useful.
1 of 2 boss could be interesting.
Okay. So Manaphy start, again, not optimal here for Pedro.
Yeah. And Pedro making me look silly here, you know, choosing to go second. You know, in retrospect, like I said, that prize advantage is really important, so it makes sense as a choice here.
And we look here on the prizes there, and there are 2 Sableye in there. They aren't relevant until later on in the game, and there is a 3rd one in the deck, so maybe not too much of a fuss there, especially as they're right at the bottom, which tends to be where the players take their first prizes.
Yeah, it's something he'll notice early and plan around, and I wouldn't anticipate being too much of an issue here.
And the Clara deep in those prizes right at the top. That could be relevant when the Charizard comes into play later on. But for now, just looking to have that instant reactive attack from Cramorant from that first hand. We'll get to see in a little bit. But for now, Alex, your brother, getting a chance here to set up the board for that Lost Zone.
And I believe this is Alex's 4th regional final. 0 for 3 in the first 3. So mentally, I'm sure an interesting place, you know, up game 1. With a solid hand here so far.
Yeah, I got a chance to chat to Alex after his win earlier on in the quarterfinals, and he was very thankful of you for helping him get here, traveling all this way. So it's nice to have that family support behind him, and now he's got that family support on stream. And what's it like to come to events with Alex?
Oh, you know, we've had, you know, 10 plus years now of a great time doing that. He was joking before top 4. I'm the only one to ever beat him in top 4 of a regional. I'm 2-0 in that series. It's really been great as I've stepped back from playing to see Alex, really blossom and take that next step and be one of the game's best.
Yeah, and as you said, you were judging at this event,
Yes.
so taking a step back from playing, we often see that from a lot of the judges. They have experience in playing and just want to be involved in the events, come along and take part. And again, for you to travel all this way to Poland from America with your brother, what an opportunity here to see him in the final.
Quite the family affair.
And you can see the board very well set up here for Alex. You can see lots of options there available, mostly the single prize options, as we mentioned, the optimal route against Lost Box. And looking at that Manaphy in play, Greninja not really an option now, but the Snorlax looking to be the powered up option available.
That does look like the route to go at this point. Not something that Cramorant can return with Spit Innocently, something that Pedro has to find another answer to. So in this space, it's a sensible choice.
Yeah, it sort of feels a bit like the 2 prize versus 1 prize trade of being too big and bulky, hitting too hard. But like we said, it's a 1 prizer on the bench there, so definitely favourable in this matchup, and something that's varied from list to list today. We've seen some people including it, others not. Snorlax, a great option here against Lost Box.
On Pedro's side, not a ton of options to start off immediately.
This is not the kind of final he was hoping for.
Not so far. Start off with the Colress.
And we've heard the debate around Colress Experiment or Flower selecting first. In this situation, Pedro doesn't have to worry about deciding.
No, I think he might have had access to a Comfy or to make that happen, but with his hand, yeah, all right, there are things to work with there. So we're gonna see things get rolling.
It's whether those switch outs are in the hand too. You can see the Battle VIP pass was in that Colress
VIP,
Experiment.
Exactly.
And then the 2 cards from those 5 will be going into the Lost Zone. One of the Colress Experiment, just because you only need to start hitting those early on, not too fussed about losing one of those at this stage. Still lacking a deck search as well, which does make these decisions quite hard.
It does complicate matters. He doesn't have, fortunately for him, there is no knowledge, their Colress is not prized, so he'll be fine there, but it does make it more difficult. I do think we're going to see the turn 1 Spit Innocently based on where things are trajecting for Pedro, and that will put pressure on Alex to respond.
Yeah, how much is being able to see ahead with these turns important for a deck like Lost Box?
Yeah, with Lost Box, especially with this, up from 4 to 10, the goals you have to hit, seeing that first turn or 3 into the future to understand what options you'll have available, really essential.
Yeah, and you can see the Fog Crystal actually being used to find a Comfey first here and allowing for that deck search. Very important, so we'll be tracking those prize cards. We'll recognise those Sableye in there, knows there's another one. Probably the Lost Vacuum and the Clara important targets. We've seen Lost Vacuum used to increase the number of the Lost Zone quite effectively in some matches, especially in those where you really want to hit that 10 as soon as possible for your Sableye.
And this could be one of those cases for sure where that 10 would be of value. So,
especially with that big Snorlax in the active.
Snorlax
once it goes asleep.
Is threatening. It is.
Yeah, with Snorlax's attack, it will be asleep off the back of it, and it's a double heads flip that needs to be taken to wake it up. So if you can Sableye around that, it can be quite an effective way to take some prizes. So right now, what's Pedro planning to do this turn? You said Spit Innocently, the target.
Yeah, got to take that first prize here. He'll be looking to put that Comfey active, go through, 2 more of the flower selecting, get that Cramorant up to Spit Innocently, take that prize lead, get the momentum swing back in his favor here.
Lovely stuff here. Pedro finding all those pieces needed, and it's why this deck has done so well this weekend. Very consistent despite that first game.
Yes.
Typically very consistent in the early turns with so much dig potential, so much ball search to find all of the basic Pokemon required. And we see benching Comfey and Cramorant from that Battle VIP pass as they have to go on the bench. And there's that Comfey in the hand from the Fog Crystal.
And Pedro does have the 2 switch outs he'll need to get the Comfey inactive, switch it out one more time, get that Cramorant inactive. So we will see that first prize taken here this turn.
Yeah, and we say that like there's not going to be the benefit of seeing 4 more cards as well. So
exactly.
So much value here with this first turn. Getting the Cramorant to attack early on, getting the Lost Zone number up as high as possible, and being able to search through 4 cards, maybe even more. We'll see how this chains out here. But due to that first game being quite quick, that does mean the players are able to spend a bit more time thinking. Time has been of the essence at this event so far, especially with Lost Box. There's a lot of actions required in a game win. How important is time management for these players, especially on the pressure high table here?
Particularly for Pedro, playing that lost box with only single prize attackers, the Drapion aside. Time management is essential. 50 minutes is not that much time, so this extended cut in the top cut we see with 75 provides so much more room for the full 3 games we would have liked to have seen here.
Yeah, a lot of people were talking about Tord Recklef using Lost Box over in America and saying how important it was a player like him was able to use that because of the fact he can play fast with it, and how important that is for this deck to be able to play at speed, make those decisions, the tough decisions through the flower selecting nice and quickly.
Yes, if you don't have it down to a science, it will be a struggle in this tournament environment.
And Pedro clearly down to a science here, 11-2-2 in the Swiss, and now in the final is going to be a big first turn here. Going to get, as you mentioned, enough switch outs to get that Cramorant attack off with the Spit Innocently. We'll be using the escape rope, which does mean the Spit Innocently might not get the knockout. So interesting maths now coming out on the board.
No, it does present Alex here trying to deny that first prize card. Galarian Zigzagoon could be an option to make up that difference. We'll see how explosive Pedro can make this turn.
Yeah, the headbutt tantrum of the Zigzagoon was used so effectively earlier on a Luminion. I think it was Alex who used it against the opponent's Luminion, hit them for 160, set them up for the damage, beautifully finished them off with the headbutt tantrum, denying the ability for them to get a following attack off. So sometimes that can be the stronger way to attack Pokemon is leave them in play so that they can't get out the active spot. But the challenge here is the scoop up net potential from Alex to pick up that Greninja afterwards.
Exactly. And speaking of scoop up net, we saw Alex make quite the face there as Pedro put a scoop up net in the lost zone off of that last flower selecting. Not something we think we would have immediately expected to see, but I think Pedro was faced with a difficult choice there.
Yeah, and you do wonder how much that first game might be affecting Pedro. You said he's a veteran player, so he's very experienced, so should be confident in this situation. But those decisions do start to get a bit cloudier after a frustrating loss when it's not going as you'd expect to.
Certainly one of the world's best, but we see here he did not get that first prize. Alex will lost vacuum that path, putting both of their lost zones up now, one further increment.
Okay, so that's concealed cards there, I believe?
I believe so.
And a Chorus Experiment now. Well, the Battle VIP pass, an instant decision right there.
Easy choice now.
And what kind of cards in Chorus Experiment are the easiest to get rid of?
Oh, you certainly want to see that Battle VIP pass. In matchups where Manaphy isn't relevant, that's an easy selection. Drapion, a similar situation. Lost Box plays a number of cards that are a little bit matchup specific.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, those attackers or basic Pokemon that you don't want on your bench, putting them in the lost zone can be a benefit sometimes, because Echoing Horn is played by a lot of decks right now to try and bring the attackers a player doesn't want onto their bench. So the lost zone actually providing a benefit there for Lost Engine decks. So a prize taken there by Alex. Cramorant Spit Innocently will take the knockout, and Pedro now has to try and return attack.
Yeah, and you mentioned that lost zone, the Echoing Horn discard phenomenon. I know Alex in this format has really been playing heavy counts of Ordinary Rod to work around that, and this is no exception. 2 counts here could be relevant as we move later into this match.
Oh, that's another way, of course. The Ordinary Rod, as soon as it hits that discard pile, send it back into the deck and not have to worry about it there. But that Charizard down early as well here. Able to get it back in the future with Clara, but definitely an unfortunate situation here for Pedro, as he's not able to get that first attack off, which is so key in this matchup.
It really is. And, the Charizard isn't immediately threatened because Spin Innocently can't hit for weakness, so Alex would have to use the Snorlax. But it is interesting to see it down so early here in this situation.
So we see that lost zone counter. You see in the bottom of your screens, 8 for Pedro and 6 for Alex, both finding a lot of early success in increasing that number with the Comphase, Flower Selecting, and a few Chorus Experiment. And that brings the Mirage Gate into play for Alex next turn. And the Lost Mine for the Sableye. The one Sableye left in play, with the other 2 in prizes for Pedro. We'll have to find that from the deck. But right now, that Spit Innocently chain, which is so important in this matchup to make sure you get that knockout, will be begun.
That is where we are. The Cramorants have begun.
So we'll be watching a lot of innocent spits back and forth, as that Cramorant will be in the active right now. The attack is available. Pedro just thinking ahead here. Very smart players They do like to sort of play back multiple turns in their head. And with that, what would you think Pedro is thinking now as potential other options to not just go back and forth and would eventually lose that prize race?
Yeah, he'll be looking to pivot to that Sableye here sooner than later and find an advantage there. Alex, meantime, actually has a second Cramorant prized, so he'll be looking here to start using that Mirage Gate to attack with Snorlax this turn would be my guess.
Exactly, and what you said about the Lost Mine is getting a situation where you can start taking maybe 3 across 2 turns.
Right.
That's a dream scenario there. The Comfey 70 hit points each. They're not going to get 2 knockouts there, but leaving 1 on 2 HP, maybe with the Headbutt Tantrum together, there's options there to try and take 2 in 1 turn. But then you've got to worry about that potential for a Giratina to come down later on and be a bit too big to knock out.
You do. Radiant Charizard is the only real answer to that problem in Pedro's list. But I would expect, with the heavy counts of recovery he has, he'll have an answer for that when the time comes.
Yeah, you speak about the recovery. Is it Clara is a nice way to get Charizard back straight into the hand.
Exactly, and with 2 copies, we should, Lost Box rarely has trouble finding what it needs, so.
Yeah, especially with all that thinning early on into the Lost Zone. So quite a slow-paced game here. Tends to be the case with Lost Box. One of its advantages and disadvantages at the times when you're worried about time. But in these kinds of matchups where your opponent is looking to match you for a single prize style of gameplay, we do tend to see it go a little bit slower. Reminds me of some theme deck battles. Obviously a lot more complicated, a lot more intricate a deck, but that style of 6 attacks needed for the game.
Absolutely, and we just saw Alex go for that Mirage Gate there. Stop my heart as a judge briefly because, do we have 7 in the Lost Zone? But we do.
Yeah, we do there, and you can see the players have all been great over the weekend, showing that Lost Zone through a tower of cards rather than a pile, and that allows you to see each of the cards individually. And we do have our wonderful judges and production keeping track of that through that Lost Zone counter. Just a little bit late on the bottom right, but it is 7 in there, as you can see on your screen if you count all those shiny cards just to the right of the V-star marker. So now we're 4 in the prizes for Alex. So in this game, it does feel like if he keeps going this way, he should be able to keep getting those prizes and take the game. But that's where Pedro's going to have to try and find an answer.
He is. And, that Sableye, like you mentioned, trying to double up will be one of his options. Alex has played around that a little bit with only 1 Comfey left on the board at this time. I imagine he'll try to do that for through the rest of this game, limiting Pedro's options to go that 2-for-1 route. He'll need to come back.
And he's had to use that throughout the day because not playing a Manaphy, had to think about that Greninja throughout all of the Swiss. And it's so smart how he's utilized just putting 1 Comfey on the bench because it's the only Pokemon in his list that can be knocked out through Greninja, or Sableye as well, rarely used in the matchups where Greninja is available. So smart on how to manage that resource of low hit point Pokemon on the bench.
For sure. And Alex, his obstacle here will be trying to take all 4 more of those prizes as he runs out of attacking options. That is, what Pedro is probably looking toward here. He's either run Alex out of steam or find some way for that 2-for-1. I don't think Alex has a Comfey in the discard, which would be one of his outs, but...
Yeah, let's just take a little moment while these guys are playing out here, reflect on the event we've had so far. Warsaw Regional, first one in Poland. We had over 700 participants. And a lot of what we saw here in terms of deck selection was very different to the recent Lille event. In particular, the deck that Alex is piloting, Giratina V-Star, was the most popular deck in this top, day 2. 25% of the decks were represented with that. Was that something you were expecting coming in?
No, I wouldn't have said so. And I think at the start of the format, we, as the community felt Giratina was really good, but it did not live up to that through the first few events. And then only, in this last event of the Lost Origin format, are we really seeing Giratina start to take its hold in the format.
Yeah, it's been doing very well and made it to the final here. Palkia Inteleon was the other option for the 25%, but success from Lost Box despite sort of falling out of popularity towards the end of the Lost Origin meta.
It really has, and it's fitting to see as we come to this last event here. We have Lost Box and Lost Box with Giratina.
Yeah, Lost Origin really providing the juice for this meta.
We've gone full circle. Yeah, Lost Box was the first deck of note from this format, and here we are again.
and to go through so many different iterations across the format. Like we said, that Snorlax later include in the deck, and the stadium variation across the period with Lost Box has kind of gone full circle. Started off with the Charizard in mind, went towards the part of the peak to counter the Empoleon, for example, and disrupt the opponents, and now we're back with that Magma Basin.
We've arrived at a format where I think, it is more friendly to that Lost Box. Less of that Empoleon, less of the things they have to counter, get around. You're exactly right.
And we see here 4 prizes for either side. A lot of people at home will be looking at this and sort of wondering how you can tell which way this game's going to go. At this point, you can't really know the full journey for the rest of this. The only advantage here is Alex was the first to knock out. So if he continues to knock out every turn a Pokemon of Pedro's, then he will be in that strong position to take the game just 1 turn sooner. But for the other side, there is concern around what we're seeing here with the Luminion on play. Why is Alex bringing out Luminion here?
I think we're going to see an Aqua return. Like I mentioned, Alex's key obstacle here is running out of ways to take prize cards. So not using this Snorlax in this spot, using Luminion, putting it back into the deck with Aqua return's effect will deny Pedro the ability to knock out Snorlax while also taking a prize card, really checking off Alex's 2 main conditions here.
It's so clever. With a deck with Greninja in, you do play that water energy because you want to have the Moonlight Shuriken available, but it also opens up the Luminion, attack that I haven't seen many players use, and I think this is the second time I've seen Alex use it, so very much part of his plan with this deck.
Gotta find a way. Lost Box, in all of its iterations, has, so many options. This is just one example.
There's a little proud brotherly smile there from you of how smart Alex is playing here. Of course, I am joined here with a special guest for this final in Christopher, and with the same surname as Alex Schemanske. You're here to commentate the final with me here, and you're probably quite proud right now of the way Alex is playing. Definitely had a very good tournament.
Yeah, like I said earlier, this is, I think, his 4th attempt in a finals of a regional. Getting close to taking this one. We'll see what happens, but I know it would be huge to him. So,
how are you feeling? Are you a little bit nervous for him, or are you?
I lost that ability years ago to be too nervous about the outcome of a TCG match. But this is definitely a unique situation for sure.
Yeah, unique as well with that final, having a first game like Pedro had there. You never want to see that, and unfortunately, it doesn't choose the best times when your decks want to fail on the first turn. So Pedro going to be a bit frustrated with that, especially if the outcome does go against him here and he loses this final. But right now he's trying everything in this second game here to come back, knowing that he has to skew the prize race and get ahead of Alex, whilst Alex is using all these creative ways to take knockouts and keep that Snorlax in play.
Yeah, I've been in Pedro's seat. It's a heartbreaking way to have your finals match start off. But of the people in the world who would be of the experience to come back from that, he'd be on the list. Be interesting to see here where he pivots this turn. I don't think he really wants to knock out this Cramorant. I think he'd have other aspirations.
Yeah, and you just see there that 10 number being hit for the Lost Zone finally for Pedro. So that opens up Lost Mine for the Sableye. As we see, both players have got all options available from their Lost Zone counts. And I think, like we said before, Lost Mine is the only real way to start skewing that prize race. The unfortunate situation is that the 4 scoop-up nets played by both players makes it quite hard to leave sprinkle damage around.
It does. I don't believe we saw Alex burn too many of those early on in the game, so that option is likely still available to him. Pedro's also 1 energy attachment from being able to use Combustion Blaze as well on that Radiant Charizard. So we're getting close to a lot of options here.
Okay, so as we are thinking about the Charizard, we are definitely going to look towards that Charizard to be a bit more of a bulky attacker. And that's why I think that Snorlax has been kept around, because it's so vital that the Snorlax is there to take the Charizard knockout. I guess the Luminion is an option that we just saw because of the weakness.
We could see a second Aqua return. I think the Mirage Gate resources might be getting a little low for that, but it would be an option and it would get the job done.
Yeah, you see that Mirage Gate in the prizes there. I think 2 other have been used.
I believe that's where we're at, yep.
So there might be 1 left available to use. Hard to find that one-off card without digging too deep. You don't want to start thinking about the deck out or removing too many resources. Like we said, scoop up nets, good to hold here. And Mirage Gate, definitely an option later on. But right now, just keeping as many attackers on the board without having to... Oh! And there we go.
Roxanne, yep.
We asked for an answer on how to get a turn back, and Roxanne has been the answer this whole event.
This is the approach. You know, Lost Box is not, in any of its forms, you know, Giratina or not a deck particularly prone to Roxanne. It's a deck where we, like I said earlier, it can often get whatever it wants. But if Pedro's going to find a way, it's going to start here with this Roxanne.
So Roxanne, both players shuffle their hands into their deck. 2 cards drawn by the player who is on the receiving end of it, and the player who plays it will be drawing 6. And it's only available when the opponent is down to 3 prize cards left. So this is the perfect turn to do it, to get it as early as possible and start that comeback.
This is the swing turn. We will, if Pedro can capitalize, this is where this game will turn. If he can't, this would be an uphill battle.
So you mentioned that Lost Mine, a great option, especially after a Roxanne, because that's where you can start keeping something in the active that doesn't want to stay there and start trying to Lost Mine around. But there's not many good options on Alex's side for that Lost Mine to attack.
There are no stall choices here. And you know, what Pedro's facing now is the Comfey is the only prize. He could take the Cramorant, but that would be an interesting... Like, it could be worth it. But removing that Comfey would remove Alex's access to additional cards. There could be that incentive there. Pedro also has to balance, you know, he has to have enough prize cards to win the game. Okay, and now we're seeing a second escape rope. Alex promote that Radiant Greninja.
Wow, the switch outs of Radiant Greninja include manual attachment of energy and retreating. So it does increase the switch outs. There's no 2 retreat cost Pokemon on the side of Alex. So a smart idea here. Like you said, Comfey, get rid of that draw potential. And I think that Cramorant is a scary threat to be able to return knockout on the Sableye.
Yeah, the other thing Cramorant has here is Pedro can put 50 damage on it, have it at 60 hit points remaining, follow up next turn with that Echoing Horn for that Comfey, maybe find that Galarian Zigzagoon to have that 2 prize swing we've talked about. It's a lot to ask for, but it is one of his routes at this point.
And he does put the remaining damage counters on the Cramorant there, 50. And this is getting to that point where we said a swing turn needed. Concealed cards with that first energy. So going for the concealed cards rather than the manual attach retreat, allowing more cards to be seen here. So the Cramorant will now get a chance to lose that. Oh, so going for the removal of damage rather than going for the retreat.
Yeah, I think avoiding that swing turn, that 2 prize swing is really where Alex is at there.
And
down to 2, that pretty switch, you got it.
Yeah, had the switch as well. So all of the cards needed there to knock out the Sableye. And at this point, Pedro's Roxanne turn not looking as good as he was hoping for, as the Snorlax is still around.
No, I think he could have hoped for more.
Yeah, you bring up a Greninja, like we said, not the best Pokemon to have in the active spot to try and stall out, because it's only 1 retreat, and it has the ability to conceal cards, so loads of outs available, and that did work out for Alex. And as you said, Lost Engine, one of the hardest decks to hit with the Roxanne.
Yeah, and at this point, I think Pedro's options are getting limited. There is still a road. That Radiant Charizard has so many hit points for Alex's deck to quickly pivot toward knocking out with that Giratina engine largely in the Lost Zone, the Mirage Gates fading. It'll be interesting to see which route he chooses this turn and what options he has. That Snorlax going down could be of significant interest to him.
Yeah, you mentioned before as well, this is a chance for Alex to get his first finals. Well, he's lost 3, right, you said?
Yes, he's 0 for 3 in Masters. You know, later he'll probably be like, well, Seniors happened. And I'll be like, yes, it did.
0 for 3 in Masters, and he'll be wanting to get that first Masters win here. So the pressure is probably building right now. And I think for a lot of people at home, it's really hard to understand how that pressure affects these players on stage when they compare it to them playing at their local TCG group.
That chair is an intense place to be. There's no doubt about it.
And this is the big turn right here. We see that Charizard is going to be getting a knockout here on the Snorlax. And that, like we said before, 4 prizes from the opponents is the key number here, right?
Yeah, you know, I think so. We are going to be needing the 4 prizes there, attack for 1 energy. That Snorlax is going down. Alex does not have an immediately obvious answer. So this is Pedro's window.
Yeah, and how we got that Snorlax up to the active is thanks to that gust from the boss's orders. No boss's orders. From Escape Rope. Cross Switcher.
Yep.
My bad, my bad. I see the cross switcher in there. I was just looking away at that moment, appreciating Christopher smirking over Alex playing so well here. My bad. But yes, the cross switches were used to get that Charizard into the active and get the Snorlax into the active too. And so that is a huge turn here because the Roxanne is still leaving that remnants from the last turn.
Yeah, and Alex hasn't had access to that Comfey since that Roxanne stuck. So the options here are getting a little thin. This is where this will be decided is this next turn right here, I think.
And you mentioned the Snorlax was the main attacker needed to knock out that Charizard, and it looks like Alex, in response to that, is going to try and play around the Charizard rather than going for it on its own.
He certainly is. That boss, I think he took off the prizes last turn, opens up his options here. I believe the second one is still in the deck, so there is a road here to go around Charizard altogether.
And that was a Mirage Gate he took from the prizes there, so that's going to be energy acceleration potential here. And that Manaphy being the target, Moonlight Shuriken now an option. So really interesting final we got here.
Well, actually, even without Manaphy, Moonlight Shuriken could knock out Radiant Charizard. 90 damage, the water weakness, that option would be on the table.
Yeah, this is a pretty special situation here. One you don't often see. You don't see games come down to the wire like this. Normally we're seeing 2 prizes taken at a time, and so to have it on this occasion where we're going for a 1 prize matchup thanks to that Giratina V-Star opting to use the 1 prizes. This is going to go back and forth right down to that final moment. Has Alex got an answer next turn as we see Pedro starting off with some flower selecting?
I was just looking through Pedro's list to see if there's any other hand disruption. There is one Marnie I don't believe we've seen yet. That could be the last route there. I don't even know if Alex has the energy left, actually, but that, you know, we are in the throes of it right here.
You know, we're talking about in-game energy there as opposed to the actual physical energy.
Yes,
I'm sure he's tired
true.
too, but at this point he is going to look to try and power up something. And we mentioned the Luminion as an option as well, but that requires 3 energy too. So that energy list, there's 4 grass, 4 psychic, 3 water, 1 capture. But for Mirage Gate, is going to be looking to get those water in particular if it's Greninja.
And they do have to be different types of energies, so the option, you know, might not be there. But I am really curious to see where we find ourselves here.
Yeah, that's a crazy situation right now. We're going to be seeing Alex probably watching this turn, just fingers crossed the top deck is in his favor. The options available, definitely limited, but we know Alex is thinking through all those options right now. Meanwhile, Pedro has just done everything possible since that Roxanne to try and disrupt Alex and stop him from getting the return KO. And he's got to think through all the different options. He's going to look through the discard pile. We'll probably take a little look at the Lost Zone as well, which you can see here, and try and work out what options are available left.
Yeah, he's looking to see those options. I think trying to figure out if, you know, he can perhaps try to use, you know, okay, we see a Cramorant come down. That Cramorant does have the advantage of Radiant Greninja can't knock it out. So that takes one advantage or 1 play out of Alex's arsenal.
God, there's so much to think about here for these guys. They've got to think what's possible, what's even in Alex's hand right now, what's he taken off the prize cards, because any of the options that have not been presented so far could have been that prize card taken. So a lot here to worry about. I mean, even the Giratina we haven't mentioned, that's got Shred. So, you know,
it does.
So there's so much to think about here, and Pedro right now.
Thinking about a path to the peak, which would take that Radiant Charizard off the table right now.
Interesting.
You know, we did, I think, see him. Yeah, his other Lost Vacuum is in the prize cards, so he has no way to remove that from play at this moment. Oh, sorry. There's a Magma Basin. I stand corrected. Oh, that's in the Lost Zone too. Yeah. There is no way to remove that path to the peak from play on Pedro's side.
Yeah, and the other thing about that path to the peak takes away the concealed cards, which got the Alex out of the Roxanne before. So trying everything right now, and the worst thing about mining at times like this is afterwards you'll find out that the hand beforehand was better for you or something like that, and you can't know, but you've just got to trust that disruption is the best route there. As Pedro is going to be, well, can't use the Charizard now, as you mentioned, with the path to the peak. He's going to be going for the Lost Mine potentially here to then secure the Greninja knockout on the next turn due to that extra damage counter maybe.
I think that's what we're looking at.
So.
All right. What did Alex get off the Marnie?
Okay, this is a big turn here for Alex as he draws the Comfey. He's going to be putting it down on the bench here. There is an energy in hand, so the Mirage Gate that we saw earlier was taken away. So scoop up net, Greninja out the active. That damage counter now not a possibility. Comfey in the active, an energy attached. We're going to see the Roxanne in return, and Alex is looking to disrupt back. This is not the route we were expecting to see here.
Not quite, but those 6 cards will present a lot of options here to close this game out.
So Roxanne is going to cause both players to shuffle their decks. And for Pedro, he's only going to be drawing 2. For Alex, he's going to be drawing 6. So find more options as well. We saw that Mirage Gate taken off the prize cards. That is energy acceleration. The attachment from hand has gone down onto the comp phase, so that's no longer an option to attach as well as Mirage Gate. So what options do we have here? Ordinary Rod.
Ordinary Rod for the Cramorant.
Oh, so the Cramorant.
All it takes is one more spit.
So the Cramorant is being put back. 2 Cramorants, in fact, being put back into the deck. We haven't seen the flower selecting yet from the comp phase, so we're going to see every option taken here to try and get that Cramorant back.
You know, I didn't see what else is in Alex's hand, but that flower selecting, that deck is not very thick. Sorry, I'm in suspense here, folks.
Yeah, so there is another Comfey in Alex's hand. So there is potential for the Comfey to flower select into some kind of switch out. We don't see the instant Cramorant selection. A Giratina is going to go into the lost zone there. So now we see another Comfey down. The retreat is an option. Scoop up net an option too. That does take away the energy. Comfey into the active. Another flower selecting opportunity here. Flower selecting. Is there a Cramorant? There is no Cramorant. If there was, it would be taken straight away. So we see the Mirage Gate instead taken. That gives the ability to apply energy if there's some still left in the deck for that retreat. Now we see another Comfey potential here. Oh, so tense right now.
I think Alex is trying to figure out, can he afford... Okay, plays the escape rope.
Oh, but this allows Pedro to put whatever he wants into that active spot as we watch as he's making that decision now. Will he put something out of range of the Cramorant as he looks through the discard pile to see if there's any options to accelerate something like the Greninja?
His only choice that Cramorant couldn't deal with is that Radiant Charizard, which he can't attack with. So unless he could promote the Radiant Charizard and hope Alex doesn't find it. I mean, obviously so many switch outs, but I'm not sure where his resources are at this point.
And I wonder where that Sableye for Alex is too. I don't know if we've seen that one yet, and that could potentially have an energy in the deck to apply to it, as we see Charizard promoted, unable to attack with the Path to the Peak, but still a bulky Pokemon. Zigzagoon straight into the Lost Zone. Cramorant in hand, needs a way to get something into that active spot. Does he have it available? This is when no turn attachment available. That was done straight at the beginning. And a pass there from Alex. It's going to be Pedro's turn. He's got to find a way. Lost Vacuum onto the Path to the Peak. Drapion into the Lost Zone. Charizard attacks. Comfey knocked out. We are going to game 3. Oh my goodness. We have just witnessed the best game of the tournament in the final.
That was remarkable. There's no other word for it.
That dig at the end there from the Cramorant, from Alex, my goodness, I'm flustered here. I mean, I kept throwing it to you. I'm so sorry. You were just so tense there watching that game, and I had to try and send as much energy to you all at home because we could feel it here. We saw a massive cheer, I heard a massive cheer from the audience out there. So everyone appreciating how good that was. I hope you guys at home appreciated that game, but it does mean we're going to be going to game 3.
And they've got plenty of time, so we're going to get to see a good game here.
My goodness, my heart is pumping. I hope you guys enjoyed that one. The Lost Box versus Giratina matchup allows for moments like that. The trades back and forth, we said if that rhythm continued, Alex would eventually win. And it was that final disruption that was not available for Pedro. Not able to get that final knockout for Alex, on Pedro. The disruption from Pedro, so good. The disruption from the game has disrupted my brain, and I do not know how to talk about it anymore. You guys saw it. You know what happened. Anyone who's just tuned in, go back and watch that game. It was incredible. But for now, stick around as game 3 will be starting soon. I'm sure the players just taking a moment here to shuffle their decks and recharge.
You know, and for Pedro, he's leveled a series that didn't start off well. For Alex, going to game 3 after that regional title was once again this close. You know, he's going to be struggling a little bit. I trust he'll pull it out and pull back. But that's an emotional roller coaster right there.
And for those just tuning in, Pedro first game scooped after about 2 turns. Didn't get the start he wanted, didn't get any flower selectings off in his Lost Box. So in that game 2, had to hope that it was going to be enough, and it did eventually work out at the end there. Lost Box, all the options throughout the game to keep that attack coming, and the disruption at the end. Roxanne, use of bigger, bulkier Pokemon like the Charizard to stop attacks. So amazing game as we go here now into game 3. I expect so much more of the same here as long as both players set up correctly.
Yeah, you know, that game two scripted one more time is a perfectly great possibility here.
As you see in the bottom right there, 33 minutes still left in this final. Plenty of time thanks to the initial scoop, and that was a fantastic start to this final. We are expecting to see a single prize style matchup here thanks to the Giratina V-Star having all those options, basically playing like a lost box, a pseudo lost box there.
It is, and you know, trying to do that in a mirror match means you're trying to do something that your opponent does better. But this matchup is so close, and that's what we knew going in, and we've seen it play out here.
And we just checked the prizes there on Alex's side. Won't mind the Giratina in there. Greninja is an option to force out the Manaphy, can be quite nice. A single Comfey, a single scoop up net could be relevant later on in the game once we start getting down to those tense final moments. But for now, we'll have enough of those to play the game. But for the other side, the lost box, Clara, again, factor 2 cross switches, was used on that vital turn for the Charizard knockout on the Snorlax.
And that too means it'll be harder to find that pair later on in the game. But those 2 VIP paths are relatively favorable, you know, compared to other things that could be there. So we've got a good balance here on the prize cards.
As long as that first turn goes well, you know, Battle VIP pass is something you don't want to ever see except for in that first turn. So when it's in the prizes, you don't mind as long as you find one or enough ball search in that first turn. So a deck search now here for Pedro is going to find those prize cards that we can so confidently see. The cross switch are definitely the more scary set of double prize cards there, because as you mentioned, going to be harder to find, and there is no search in this deck. It's not like an Inteleon line where you can just find those two miraculously. We'll have to naturally draw into them, and so the more of those the better. But yes, right now just trying to set up as many Comfey as possible and get that lost zone built up.
Sometimes it feels like Lost Box draws miraculously, but that is not in fact the case.
Well, we saw that in game one, right?
We did.
And Alex will be thankful for that, because last game is definitely going to sting. That's a lot of Pokemon played to lose a game, but Alex now gets a reset in this final game. Both players starting with that Sableye, not an optimal start, as you can't really use that until there is 10 in the lost zone, so we'll be instantly switched into a Comfey at the first convenient opportunity.
And I think Pedro's going to look to do that right here. He has access to at least that one Comfey. I saw at least the energy card. He'll be able to get that flower selecting off and get things rolling here.
So take a moment here to breathe as the shuffle comes in. Alex is definitely thinking through that first turn. He's looked at his hand. He's put it down just to rest and wait and see what's going to be in front of him as Pedro gets that first Comfey onto the bench. Got to find a way to switch into it. There is the energy retreat situation. Most of these cards in Lost Box and in the single prize selection in Giratina V-Star have that one retreat cost, which allows the energy retreat to be an option.
It's all about getting that Comfey inactive early in the game, and that really helps facilitate it.
Right.
See the one flower selecting here.
Oh, these first flower selectings, thankfully after a deck search, so not going to be doing misinformed flower selectings, but we'll be wanting to make sure it gets it correct here. We don't know what those two are. Only Pedro does, and he doesn't seem to be happy with the one that he's going to have to get rid of. An air balloon. One of those great switch options, especially for the longevity of this game. You want that pivot available for the whole time, but may have been a vital card he had to take there.
I think, you know, Pedro here looking to get, ideally, at least that 2 cards in the lost zone this turn. Going from 1 to 4 next turn without a Chorus, which he doesn't have access to yet, is a bit of a tall task. But we see here, he has the Chorus. Very good.
Okay, so we see Echoing Horn in there. Again, another card you don't want to see early on. Cross switches as well. A card you want to save for later on when it's more relevant. And that Zigzagoon was placed down, but I don't think it was with the intention of the damage. It was with the intention of putting something up to the active that you're not too fussed to lose.
I believe we have a sacrificial Zigzagoon here, whereas Comfey is essential to continuing to move the game forward.
Exactly. You said that Chorus experiment in hand, a lovely card to see for the next turn, and will start that lost zone number filling up and hopefully see some vital cards as well. But now we see Alex with that Battle VIP pass, the dream start, double Comfey down. Sableye needs to be retreated somehow, but once it is, we'll see that engine begin.
And if Alex can't take a prize this turn, Pedro is in really good shape. He has that Chorus's experiment. That's 2 more cards in the lost zone. I'm going to take a slight stretch and say he'll get the Comfey inactive with the army of switch cards he has available. That gets to 4. He can take the spit and instantly knockout, then take the prize lead. That would be a tall hill for Alex to climb.
Yeah, Battle VIP Pass, not only a great way to search your cards, but also a great way to check the deck. So now very aware of what's in the prizes. And as we mentioned, the Greninja, the most important of those prizes probably, as everything else there is another version of Radiant cards, only allowed one of them in the deck. We'd all play multiple Greninja if we could.
Oh, what a day that would be.
And maybe all the other Radiants we would look to chuck multiple of in decks, but only one allowed, and that is the case here. Greninja will be sitting there until that first prize card taken, but we're going to see that typical flower selecting chain begin. An instant decision there, capture energy straight into the lost zone. We'll be looking to Chorus Experiment now. That will get them to the 4 lost zone needed to get that Cramorant attack off and start this knockout chain.
I think I see multiple Battle VIP Pass as well off of Alex's Chorus Experiment there. Quite the turn of events.
And a boss going to the lost zone there with the Giratina V-Star. That's obviously a great one to chuck away, but the boss could be vital in the future. Only 2 in the list here for Alex, and we saw how important it was to be able to pick and choose the right Pokemon to attack on the opposing side.
We did. That last game came down to what was in Pedro's active spot. So it's an important loss here, but I think the VIP Pass, Alex thought, more important to get things rolling.
So double Cramorant down with that last VIP Pass. Another chance to do so here as we see a Comfey in hand. That Drapion, you don't want that in the discard pile. We mentioned how the Echoing Horn is an option here for Pedro. If that Drapion hits the discard pile, it might come out onto the field and be an option for a Charizard knockout later on.
For Alex, policing his discard pile is nearly as important as policing his bench, and they're both really important to winning this match.
You mentioned there was a few strategies around that ordinary rodding instantly once it was in the discard pile, and that way you can see it later on for a flower selecting maybe.
Exactly.
But yeah.
It's something I know Alex is acutely aware of. The entire format, he's been sort of centered around ordinary rod as a way around dealing with Lost Box.
So here, game 3 of the final. We've been here in Warsaw all weekend long. Over 700 at the beginning. Now down to 2. It has been an exceptional tournament. So many Pokemon players have come out. It is the final tournament in this Lost Origin format. Hope you're all excited for Silver Tempest coming out soon. And these 2 decks definitely defining decks within this meta, as we mentioned, utilizing as many of those Lost Origin cards as possible. And here they are on that battlefield, on the play, waiting to knock each other out, Cramorant after Cramorant, spitting innocently across the table.
It's an appropriate conclusion here. Pedro is in a good spot now to at least continue that price swing this turn. We'll see how Alex responds. I would expect we'll see some additional spitting across the field as we wait.
Innocently, mind you.
Innocently, yes. Waiting for this game to get to that point we saw last game where it was a matter of who can keep up the steam.
First prize was taken there by Alex, so now on the side of Pedro, he's going to be thinking again about that disruption later down the line. A lot of thinking ahead. Last game was won by Pedro despite attacking second, but it was that disruption from the Roxanne later on. There we go, that Drapion in the lost zone. Don't have to worry about that one coming out with an Echoing Horn.
I think he's safe anyway. I don't think Alex is
an
Echoing Horn at this moment.
Alex doesn't have an Echoing Horn.
It's a one-sided problem.
A one-sided problem. Anyway, get it out of the deck. No one wants to look at that anymore.
No one likes it, yeah.
You're done with it now. Mew's not about. Mew's long since gone. Didn't even make top 8 here, despite being the Lille champion. Very nice. Comfey chaining here. Flower selecting another time here. 2 cards. As mentioned, both players very aware of what they need to get off each of these flower selecting. There are a few that can be a bit 50-50 and uncertain, and you don't want that to come back to bite you in the future.
It's a matchup where for each of them, there are a couple of cards that it'll be an easy selection, especially after those first couple turns as things get set up. We see Pedro attach here. I would expect we'll be pivoting shortly to that Cramorant.
Yeah, it's a great asset to have a 0 energy attacker in Cramorant, because then you can use those energies for retreating. Often the last case scenario you want to be doing in Pokemon to retreat using energy, as it's such a valuable asset each turn, only 1 attachment per turn. But in this case, the Cramorant doesn't need it, and there is another Cramorant ready on Pedro's bench for a future attack. So for a little while, those energies aren't relevant for Pedro. He's just going to be looking to hold on to them for future Charizard attacks or future Sableye attacks. where on the other side we see a similar kind of story, Cramorant ready to attack.
That Cramorant will likely be the route Alex takes to that knockout this turn, although we see the Lumineon going for the Chloris' experiment.
Okay, so the Lumineon early on is a safer bet. These V cards are definitely concerning once the Charizard comes out, but early on, if that Lumineon does stick around for multiple turns, as we still need some Lost Zone cards here after this Chorus experiment to get the Mirage Gate.
I think the Chloris should push us to the 7 we need for the Mirage Gate. And that would open the Lumineon option this turn, but like you say, Radiant Charizard not yet threatening. I don't know if I would expect that to be the route this turn.
And if they try and put any damage on it from the Lost Mine, it's going to be redundant because the Lumineon's just going to be able to get rid of it the next turn.
As good as putting the damage in the discard pile.
Exactly. And maybe that's what Alex is thinking. I mean, he assumes Pedro is smart enough to think of that route, but he's probably putting it down as a, go on, try and attack it.
A nice little red herring in the corner can never hurt anybody.
But yeah, we might see that fish attack again. We haven't seen it attack much throughout the day, but Alex, the only user of it for me throughout today on the feature table, used it twice already, once in that previous game and one earlier on in the quarterfinals. As we see Mirage Gate, there we go. Lumineon getting powered up.
The option will be on the table, if nothing else here.
For those of you at home who've played your Lumineon down to try and find a supporter card but have never thought about attacking with it because you haven't got the water energy or you just didn't realize it was a good option. It does hit for 120, which does knock out most of the lost box, and it also will be shuffling into your deck, so a way of keeping energy in the deck as well, and you know, taking away energy and taking away damage counters can be a good way to reset the play a little bit if there is any attacks are done on it.
Alex goes ahead here, attaches to the Sableye, have that option open available later, and now the Lumineon is just there as a threat, saying, some turn I will take a prize card, and you will do nothing about it.
Exactly, as we see the 4 prize cards remaining for Alex. And the time, plenty of time here left. As we mentioned, the first game was a quick scoop from Pedro as it didn't go as planned. But that easy flower selecting, battle VIP pass, an instant decision there, and we see a scoop up net available. The cross switches, both of which we said are prize, so having taken one of them off of the prizes, that's now opened up that ability to cross switcher, which did have a key turn in the last game. So as we know, the lost box hands do grow very quickly as you start doing those flower selecting if there's no disruption. So Pedro just compiling some options for when Alex does eventually get disrupted.
Lost Box is all about building up your hand size. There is no greater way to put yourself in control of the game than to have tons of options available, and that's exactly what Pedro is doing here.
And that's why that Roxanne was so effective last time. Going from a massive hand size down to 2 takes away so many options, but a hard deck to Roxanne out of the game due to that draw potential out of flower selecting and so many ways to retreat and start chaining that move.
Something I noticed on Alex's last turn is that Ordinary Rod is going to the prize cards. Or sorry, the Lost Zone. What that means is he will have only one more Ordinary Rod to get those Cramorant back, which will present, I think, later in the game some obstacles as far as, you know, we saw last game. He ran out of steam. There was no way to take that last prize card. That's an awkward thing to Lost Zone at this stage of the game.
We also said the boss earlier on as well, and this is why this deck is so hard to play for beginner players. It's good for beginners because it teaches them a lot of key decisions, and you know, you have to start making those 50-50 decisions. But if you do have to make a tough one, it's which resource do you get rid of? Do you get rid of the one that's going to help me on turn 7, 8, 9, or the one that's going to help me now? And a lot of the time you have to prioritize the early decisions, as we saw a boss put in the Lost Zone with the Battle VIP pass in the first turn as a priority.
You do have to get to the last turn in order for the resources to matter, and that's, I think, what we saw here.
Oh, it's definitely going all the way here. If it's anything like the last game, we're going to see prizes taken back and forth, and the only way now for Pedro to get ahead in that race is to disrupt Alex enough so that Alex can't attack every turn in a row. And Alex is just going to be looking to keep managing his resource so that he can do that.
Exactly so. You know, we saw Pedro has that Roxanne ready to go. I don't think Alex has no way to disrupt Pedro's hand unless Pedro has turned on that Roxanne. He's nowhere close to doing that. The map is set for us to follow, you know, a similar path to last game here.
There's still that Drapion to worry about. Hopefully it doesn't go to the discard pile anytime soon. I believe it's gone back into the deck, maybe.
I think Alex's Drapion might still be chilling in hand. You know, he's got a couple cards over there himself. It's a little hard to tell.
Yeah, with a lack of disruption every turn with things like Marnie in low count, only one in Pedro's deck. Roxanne, as you said, not activated yet. Both players will be increasing that hand size to a point where they can hold things and know that it's not going to be in play for a while. And Luminion push forward. There's that Greninja from the prize cards. We mentioned it was sitting in there patiently, taken early on, opens up things like concealed cards, which you have to be careful of because that's losing resources. So many decisions here for Alex to think about throughout the game. And there's some Mirage Gates off the top.
Yeah, that really opens up some options for Alex here as well. You know, we haven't seen that Snorlax come down yet.
Oh, there it is. Speaking of the devil, Snorlax. What a Pokemon he's been in recent times, having 3 very effective cards in the meta. Well, some more effective than others. This one definitely the most brightly shining of the Snorlax. You have the Gourmandise one, which we saw a little bit with Mew v Union, and occasionally in a control deck we might see the blocking Snorlax. But this Snorlax here that likes to hit big for 3 energy with the unfazed fat, that's the one that's done the best here in Warsaw.
It's a very sleepy fellow. I know that cost Alex a game earlier today with that you need to flip 2 heads to wake up from sleep. I'm sure he would not be looking to find that spot again.
Yeah, typically the thumping snore, when you've done that, you think, well, it's just going to be gone next turn anyway, or I might have to switch it out or find another route. 4 retreat cost, you're not going to be doing that through energy, that's for sure. Well, you could, in theory, after attacking, but it would be a lot of energy gone. But thumping snore, typically a one and done, you hope. If it has to stick around, it can end up disrupting yourself, and that's where things like Sablying around it and keeping that going will be a while. Oh, this is a key card here. Boss's orders being used, and that's the final boss available. So boss going to the discard pile, the other one in the lost zone. So that is the last time we'll see Alex boss in this game.
Yeah, completely yielding control of Pedro's active spot to Pedro at this time, with the exception of escape rope. That really is putting Alex in an interesting position for the rest of this game. Like we've talked about, Ordinary Rod, the boss in the lost zone, the options to get those last 3 prize cards are narrowing.
And we see 3 prize cards for Alex. That means the Roxanne is available as an option. And that also, that Luminion went back into the deck, so will be available in the future for its interplay effect to find a supporter card when needed. And potentially, like we said, as an option to knock out Charizard as weakness is available. So now we are seeing resources disappear as we get down to the second half of this match.
And we see Alex promote the Snorlax here off of that Aqua Return. I think the idea here is Radiant Charizard can't attack this turn. Pedro has no way to get the second energy it would need. So that means Pedro is going to need to either move Alex's active Pokemon or hit into that Snorlax, which would not be very satisfying. If it's an escape rope, Alex has that Radiant Greninja on the bench trying to soak up that extra hit. So Alex does have outs here to avoid giving up a prize card, and that would be huge for the tempo of this game.
Yeah, so much thinking ahead there from Alex to use that Luminion to attack, disappear, and be able to put anything he wants forward. And as you mentioned, escape rope would come in here, get the Greninja into the active spot. And so this is where we have to find a different route to knocking out. And I wonder what the decision's going to be here for Pedro, because Spit Innocently won't do enough here for that Greninja.
And Pedro does have some scoop up nets still sitting around. I don't think he's exhausted too much of that this game. So, you know, that Galarian Zigzagoon could once again be an option to close that gap, but it would be quite a resource stretch.
Yeah, these top players are pretty good at hiding their emotions, but I did see a little bit of frustration there from Pedro, just having to think a little bit harder than he'd hoped to at this stage, as he has to find a route to a knockout, and it's not going to be through a boss, through that Pokegear, as boss is not in the list. It's probably going to be looking for that Roxanne for disruption, but we still need to see that knockout to keep on tempo.
He does have double cross switcher in hand, it appears, so he does have options to close that gap this turn. I could see a double cross switcher into that Sableye or perhaps the Cramorant, hit the Roxanne, and try to put Alex in a position where he can't respond next turn.
What a final we're having here. Game 2 was a beautiful game. We'll ignore Game 1. Doesn't always go as you'd hope, but now we're here in Game 3, going to follow a very similar story to Game 2.
The short Game 1 gave us the blessing of seeing 2 full good games here.
There we go. You're thinking positively. I like that from you, Christopher. Christopher here joining me for the final. Brother of Alex, has been judging here in Warsaw and has come on to guest commentate the final. So much knowledge you brought to this with your history in the game, and also knowing Alex so well. You know his deck inside out. I can tell with the you didn't even have to look at the list whenever you're calling stuff out, which is amazing. So hopefully enjoying the final here from the caster desk, and hopefully you guys at home are enjoying the final. Christopher, what do you think right now is going through Alex's mind?
Well, you know, it's funny. You mentioned I know Alex's list. I didn't know Alex's deck until round 5 when he was on stream yesterday.
Oh, really?
But knowing Alex and how he builds decks so well over the years, like you say, I can guess most of what's here based on the genre. In his mind, he's hoping to see Pedro not have this double cross switcher that he has in hand. Try to get out of this turn.
There it is.
That hope has just been dashed. Cramorant is going to go down here. Pedro is showing some frustration, which I'm sure Alex is excited about. Honestly, I'm guessing Alex is kind of partially hoping this doesn't slip away yet again. But this game is still in a very competitive space, and I'm very excited to see what happens.
Both with Roxanne still available, which is that key disruption turn, and you see there the Manaphy coming down, meaning there's no Moonlight Shuriken options, and there's the Roxanne. The Roxanne's so key to this game here. After that cross switcher, one of which from the prizes, one was naturally in hand. So we've seen Pedro with the massive swing turn here. He needs this turn to work out. He needs it to stick, and he needs no return knockouts. But there is one available still with that Sableye. It's whether two turns or 3 turns ahead, we see that continued disruption from Roxanne affect Alex down the line.
Yeah, Alex has a roadmap to 2 prize cards here. That's Snorlax and that's Sableye. We'll assume the energy happens. That 3rd prize card is a mystery. Alex has no Comfey on the field. This Roxanne does have staying power in this situation.
Yeah, so there's the Magma Basin for the future to think about with the Charizard if needed. And we're seeing lots of options in the hand for Pedro. He's already got the attacker ready. He doesn't need to worry about that. He's just thinking ahead. What can he do that's so key to the future? There's an Echoing Horn there. Might be thinking about stuff to put on the bench as an available option in the future. We mentioned about that Drapion. It did get drawn as one of those 2 cards, I believe, for Alex. So not only is it a redundant card in his hand, but he doesn't want to use it as discard.
No, that's a really frustrating position for Alex to be in. I'm sure, you know, seeing that Drapion alone is very sad. Knowing that you can't do anything with it, even sadder.
So we see here Pedro, just a little bit of deck thinning. Always important, especially as the return Roxanne could, in theory, come out. If there's a return Roxanne, I think Alex will be in a very happy position.
I've been playing Pokemon with Alex long enough to know it is a great possibility that Roxanne is the 2nd card, but we'll find out.
Are you suggesting he's a little bit lucky at times?
I think Alex would suggest that.
Okay, maybe a few bad memories of when you played against him, although you've got the better of him a lot of the time.
I have had the important ones break my way, it's true.
The important ones, those top 4 wins against your brother, but we are seeing here that Roxanne yet to start playing action turns on Alex's side. We're just waiting to see what Pedro's going to do to try and solidify his board state for the future as much as possible. Considering putting energy down, as we mentioned, for that retreat. No real energy requirements on Pedro's side except for single attachments onto things like the Charizard and the Sableye.
And these energy cards basically turn into glorified switch cards at that point, which we know Lost Box loves very much.
Especially off the back of a disruption. You'd love to put a Comfey into the active spot and retreat it to have another go at flower selecting. But Sableye going forward here, interesting.
Oh, Alex's Lost Zone isn't at 10, so that option wasn't there.
You'd assume at this stage of the game, I think we both just assumed at this stage of the game there would be 10 in the Lost Zone, but of course Alex only on 7 still. So that intention from Pedro to waste a turn with that Roxanne has come off. The Lost Box has come out on top when it comes to disruption. This is why that first knockout isn't the only route to victory. There's so many important factors to getting that disruption later on. So Sableye not getting attack off here. Lost Mine not activated until 10 in the Lost Zone.
No, and you know, Alex might still have some options here. Pedro's clearest route to a prize card this turn is that Radiant Charizard. And if Alex drew an energy card and attacked with Snorlax, he would knock out the Radiant Charizard. Pedro wouldn't have an obvious response. But the avenues are closing here.
Yeah, and it's not only the 7 in the Lost Zone that's vital for the Lost Mine, but that's a typical route to thinning your deck so your outs are better when you get Roxanne. So right now, Alex's deck is full of cards he doesn't want to draw into, like that Drapion we saw, and he couldn't thin that into the discard pile. He really needed to thin that into the Lost Zone. So those options are dwindling here. Alex is just going to have to wait patiently as he watches Pedro perform his next turn.
Yeah, that's it's an like tormenting seat to be in. There really aren't words for that pit of, win game one so quickly, be so close to winning game two, and seeing game three start to slip away here. I know it's a routine Alex knows unfortunately well, and we'll see what happens here.
That choice belt going down, probably not relevant, I assume.
No, I think certainly not.
But it's out of the deck now, so that's a card that's avoided. Maybe used as a lost vacuum tool to get rid of if there's still one about, but ultimately just to get it out of that deck in case of a Roxanne, for example.
Pedro is crossing his T's, dotting his I's, trying to keep everything in line to keep these avenues as clear as he can.
So can attack with the Charizard here with a single attachment.
Yes, needs one more.
And we wonder where that's going to come from.
We see the Clara.
Okay, so Clara will get an energy back, and the bench space was opened up from that Zigzagoon. So wondering here what the planned avenue is here. So
we're going to see the Sableye come down, I think, is actually the line Pedro's going to pursue. Try to soften up that. Now he'll knock out the Comfey, soften out the Greninja, put himself in a road where Alex can't do that line I described earlier, which was his, closing avenue to maybe come back here. Really limit Alex's choices using that Sableye.
Yeah, now we see that Sableye powered up. The Lost Zone well and truly above 10 for Pedro, so Lost Mine is in play here. That Psychic Energy placed smartly in previous turns now coming into effect as the retreat happens. Sableye now going to sprinkle damage around. Let's see where Pedro's thinking to sprinkle this damage. I'm assuming the Sableye on the bench will be knocked out.
Yes.
Has 10 damage on it from earlier, so 70 required to put it in the discard pile and be a knockout. For Snorlax and Greninja here, which one of them do you reckon he's going to put it on?
I think he'll try to soften the Greninja enough that Sableye could return a knockout next turn. And yeah, that's what we see here.
Okay, so all of those remaining damage counters, the 50 damage counters put onto the Greninja. So Collapse Stadium coming down here, which will mean Pedro has to take
Alex
one
does have
benched
the
away.
Mirage Gate to be able to attack with Snorlax this turn. I don't know where the next plan is for a prize card, but he can get down to 2 this turn.
But then that big Snorlax is going to be about, and so the Charizard is the key factor here. And we mentioned that boss's orders. One's been used, one's in the Lost Zone, so not able to get the Charizard up and hit with the Snorlax. There is one more Clara, I believe, for Pedro, because he used one and he's got one in the deck.
Yeah, I believe he actually just took it off the prizes here, which will really open his options immensely.
But that Roxanne was so effective for Pedro to take away Alex's options. He's going to go for the knockout. And he does actually wake up the Snorlax straight away with the double heads there. So Snorlax not going to be asleep here after that thumping snore. The thumping snore from Snorlax.
Snorlax will be awake to take his hit this turn, I think, is the ultimate outcome we've got here.
So Charizard looking to get that return knockout. Not even risking putting that Comfey up into the active spot. Doesn't need to search for anything else. Has everything there available. As long as nothing else gets benched from Alex that needs to be knocked out. The Cramorant will be available to knock out that Greninja if it remains with 50 damage counters on it. So right now looking very good for Pedro.
Yeah, Alex's avenues, like we've been saying, are closing up here. There are still maybe some theatrics that could be in the works, but Pedro has to be feeling good about where he's sitting right now.
So that 3-card hand for Alex placed down on the table. I think he's had enough of looking at that Drapion he picked up from the Roxanne. As we see Pedro just making sure all of those options are covered in case of a potential Roxanne, for example. Will hopefully be able to retreat that Comfey next turn if needed. So maybe you see a similar setup where we're going to attach an energy there. That Cramorant on the bench, always available to attack for 110 if needed.
Pedro is one of the best in the world, like I've been saying. It's not surprising here to see we are going to have a well-sequenced game plan that is going to make Alex's road real tough.
Lost vacuum here. Is that going to be used to take away the stadium? Collapse Stadium gone. The bench now opened up to have a little bit more. So we see another Sableye down. Multiple options on Pedro's bench for the knockout. So even if that Greninja isn't put into the active spot, that can be sniped by the Lost Mine, putting 120 damage counters on it.
Exactly. No, Pedro really has many, many options to that last prize here.
Just another Sableye, just in
Yeah,
case as well.
insurance.
And so here we go. The Charizard has got the energy attachment, which I don't think is needed with the Charizard's ability, which takes away 4 energy costs for him with the excited heart. So the Combustion Blast coming out for just the fire energy there, and that Psychic Energy in hand will be available for the Sableye next turn.
It will. Alex goes for the Quick Ball here, eyeing that Lumineon. So we could see that Roxanne we've mentioned. That would, I think, be Alex's play here.
Of course.
In an absolutely absurd world, we could see some sort of like Sableye, Galarian Zigzagoon combo trying to take 2 prizes this turn. I don't think the resources are there.
Especially after a Roxanne, right?
Well, yes, Alex would be looking to play the Roxanne here, take that 6 cards. Oh, you're right. No further supporter for sure.
Yeah, so the Roxanne will be the option here. And then with that Greninja having damage on it, needs to find that scoop up net to try and take damage off it. But if he attacks with the Lumineon, he'll have to have the Greninja back down, and the Greninja will be the solo card about. So we'll see what happens off this Roxanne, what other cards are going to be put into play. Can't put anything below 120 hit points, just at the risk of a potential Sableye in the future.
We have, hypothetically, seen both Clara in Pedro's discard, so there is no way to get this Radiant Charizard back. If Alex should somehow pull that combo to make that happen, it could be an interesting place. Pedro also attaching that Psychic Energy last turn has 1 fewer out to that Sableye attack in his deck now off this Roxanne. So
and potentially could have attached it to the Sableye to prepare for this attack, or attached it to the Comfey to be able to put it up and then retreat it. So there was other ways that Psychic Energy could have come down, and I wonder if that was a miscalculation from Pedro for the attachment there, not realizing that it was only going to need the fire energy, as we see a Comfey down. So you're just going to have to rely on the idea that there is no attack here from the Sableye. Thornton going straight into the Lost Zone. Greninja comes back down. We see a Water Energy in hand, so now just that Water Energy going to the discard pile with concealed cards. So now we have to see what options are available. No supporter. We haven't seen a turn attachment. We have Giratina coming down for the first time in this matchup.
Alex has passed, and I think
what are we watching
here? Are we
here?
missing something?
Is that a pass there? I may have just asked Pedro for
No,
he has passed. So off the back of this is just the return knockout.
I don't disagree with you. I think Alex agrees also, based on the sort of thumbing along he's doing.
So we see cards being played down here by Pedro as he does retreat into the Cramorant for the knockout. So we see Pedro is going to take the game. Pedro is your champion, and he wins here at Warsaw Regional, taking Alex down in the reverse sweep in the final. First game loss, instant scoop, goes into 2 wins. A long fought battle there for Pedro, not only throughout the tournament, but in the final too.
One of the world's best picks up his 2nd regional championship. Congratulations to Pedro. It's an exciting day.
And I think at the end there, you could see the nerves really affecting him as he made those final few decisions. Definitely going to be feeling it right now. You see how much it means to him. So many points here won for him. Loads of booster packs and a bit of money as well.
Just a bit.
So you can see how much it means there on the table. Exhausted. A long tournament. Having 15 rounds of Swiss. Going into that top 8. Has done so well to win the whole tournament. Pedro is your Warsaw Regional Champion.
It's a long weekend, and to be on top at the end of it has to be an amazing feeling. Pedro has fought through a really quite an excellent field this weekend in Warsaw. Like you've mentioned, more than 700 players, the 2nd largest European regional championship we've had. Truly an immense field. What an accomplishment for Pedro.
And the final winner of the Lost Origin format. That is well and truly pushed behind us as we look forward to Silver Tempest. So for Pedro, he's going to be hoping this puts him in a really good spot to earn stipend for OCIC, maybe even that travel award. So he's going to be very happy about this. This is what's so important about winning these tournaments, these players. It's not just about winning and getting all the prizes you get. It's about creating that opportunity to go play something you love more and more in the future, travel to more events, and get to travel all around the world to play Pokemon.
It's quite an exciting series to be a part of. I'm sure Pedro is at the top of it right now. Really an exciting thing.
Well, Christopher, unfortunately, you witnessed another loss for your brother there, Alex. Also an amazing player, and we saw him earlier in the quarterfinals with one of the quickest matches we saw on stage. And just unfortunate there, the disruption going against him in that final. He's going to be feeling pretty frustrated right now.
I imagine it's going to be a bit of a low point at the moment. To come so close yet again and fall short, it's a painful feeling.
Especially at the hands of a Roxanne, one of the most frustrating ways to see out the end of a game. Those 2 cards you take from the Roxanne, so deadly, and you're worried that it's going to ruin the final few turns for you, and in this case it did. So, Alex not quite making it this time, but still, coming into that final, coming second still is an amazing achievement.
It's an exciting finish. I think he passes me on regional finals now, which he'll be excited about in a few days.
Brotherly rivalry there from you, Christopher.
Yeah, it's been great.
It's been great. Well, I appreciate you coming on here for the final. You've been an amazing co-caster for me. And for everyone at home, I hope you've enjoyed the games. We will get a chance to chat with Pedro after winning that final. But for you, what has this event been like? I mean, first time here in Warsaw. What's the event been like for the Pokemon community?
To see a regional championship in this new market, I think was really exciting. Out on the floor judging, I saw lots of folks who I think, relatively new to the regional circuit, exciting to see this in Eastern Europe for the first time. It really was a magical weekend. The venue is wonderful. Warsaw is an amazing host city. Things have been great, yeah.
And they've been really creative, the Polish players. We saw 2 of them in top 8. We saw Alex with that Vikavolt Palkia deck, which, something we've not really seen much of at all in this format. And to get that far shows it was a very smart deck to play. And then on the other side, I can't remember his name. There was another Polish player in top 8 who had 2 powerful color synergies in his Arceus Giratina deck. So creative in the cards that they included, something that we sometimes don't see from players in the local scene. They might look to copy decks that they've seen online, but these guys clearly got a lot of competition here.
No, when you can change it up in a large field, find yourself some competitive edges, that can make all the difference, and that's really exciting to see succeed here.
Well, for everyone at home, you won't be able to copy these decks for too long, so your last little chance to try them out before we go into Silver Tempest. Is there any decks you're looking forward to going into the next format?
There's no doubt that Lugia V-Star is the star, no pun intended, of the following format. There's no doubt there.
Yeah, and while we're here, we've got Pedro, the champion here. Is there any other players who played decks that you thought, oh, that was quite interesting?
Part of my job is I see so many decks that it's hard to pick out any particular favorites. Like you say, Giratina being so present was a notable surprise. The number of Arceus Giratina that we saw this weekend and the success it had, I think, was something I didn't quite expect to see. So overall, Giratina was sort of the surprise story of the weekend to me.
Well, hopefully we'll see more of Giratina in the future, but it might hate the idea of V-Guard energy coming around. So definitely keep your Giratinas close. They will have a chance to come back and shine, but for now, look to get those Lugias in your binder and start trying those out. We will go for a short break now, and just after that, we'll do the award ceremony. We'll get to meet Pedro and speak to him about his amazing victory today.
We looked for ways to play the top decks that were top 8ing and winning tournaments. And we started playing those decks. We got very good really quickly because of that. It's been a lot of fun. It's been a cool journey for sure.
Yeah, I think like because some people start off like with theme decks, right, and move up from there. But we like started from the top decks, like from Torres or other like groups like DDG, right? And we just net decked deck lists and played it, and like that's how we taught each other like how to play.
Yeah, I think that's the best way you could get into competitive playing if you're a new player. Just get the best decks you can, and you're going to learn way faster if you play the best decks from the beginning.
Yeah, back then also there were no online tournaments, right? So like more of your testing was on you, like in real life, playing with like actual people at your local league. But right now also the good idea is to just pick up a deck like top tier and just go into online tournaments like the 200 plus people and get your practice like this.
Yeah, online tournaments have helped for sure. And I feel it's also very cool that we've had them during COVID, because we could have like kept our farm for the last like year or two. Because we started learning at the like highest competitive level, so we would like replay matchups from like finals of big tournaments, and I think it was a very good way of learning. And one summer I found a local league here in Warsaw. I went there without him. It was a lot of fun. I won the small event there. It was like a league challenge, I think, and I invited him for the next one. We went there and we really got into Pokemon, and the next year we were already traveling to Germany and all over Europe for events.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
We like became like really good very quick, because we already knew a lot about the game getting into the tournaments, because we practiced a lot without even knowing like the community is here. And then when we found out about the community, then like people told us about the events, how we can like actually go abroad for the events, and then we like really got into the game because we saw it like being very competitive, and that's what we wanted to like get from it. Like what kept us through through these years, right? It was like the first year we played in seniors together, and then I moved to masters, and the really cool idea we had is that we will always play like the same deck, like the 60 that I, for example, prepared, or he gave me idea and I optimized the list. So we always like try to play the same 60 cards at the big events, but me doing it in masters and he doing it in seniors. He had more like better results than me, but like I could at least say that it was my deck, so that's cool.
Yeah, I feel like every single event I've been to last year, I've just taken his lists and done fairly well, I'd say. So it's been a lot of fun, and I also think that's what makes this game so great, is having friends around you that you can play with, you can test with. And even just preparing for the tournament can sometimes be even more fun than the tourney itself. And the tournament is just a reward for all the work you put in.
I know you want to hear everything about us and our how our Polish scene is looking like, but unfortunately we have a run coming up soon, and yeah, we see you later.
Welcome back for the final time, Pokemon viewers all around the world. We've had an amazing time here in Warsaw. We started with over 700 participants competing throughout the weekend, and we finally have our winner. It has been one of the greatest weekends of Pokemon in EU, the second largest regional ever, and it was here in Poland for the first time, here in Warsaw, where we've had amazing Polish players represented, 2 into the top 8, but in the end, there was one winner. From Spain, I'd like to welcome Pedro. So I'm going to keep it nice and simple. How are you feeling right now?
Well, that's a really great feeling, especially because after my top 4 in UAC, I didn't have really good results in my last tournament, so I was kind of sad because I thought I was playing well, right, but the results weren't not on me. So after that, I'm winning today with more than 700 players. It's really emotional, especially when I break game 1 in the finals. I needed to win 2 games that were super close and really well played by Alex too. I want to congratulate Alex for the second place too, because the games were super good. And I actually play a version really similar to his list. So of course, shout outs to Alex too. But yeah, the feeling is great, and I'm gonna enjoy that moment because it's really hard to win for sure.
Oh, really hard to win, like you said, so many people, and then you come out on top. And you chose the Lost box here at the event, and this is the final one of the Lost Origin meta. So I want to ask you, why did you choose that deck?
Well, I was testing a lot of decks like Palquintelion that I played in the special event of Bilbao. I also tested Lost on a lot that I played in Lille regionals. And yeah, I tested too many decks, but the deck I felt more comfortable was Lost on because it's a deck that only gives one prize. And you can actually take 2 prizes in 2 turns with Sableye. You can spray damage. You can hit turn 1 with Cramorant into some Sobbles, for example, that you take a prize. So it's a deck that you have a lot of time to actually win or to come back, like in the final case, because you only give 1 prize. So I really like decks like that games are longer, so then you have more time to try to outplay your opponents. So yeah.
And I guess I got to ask you, how did you feel at various moments throughout that final? So firstly, how did you feel after that first game 1 brick? And also, how did you feel after each of those Roxanne moments?
Well, after game one in the finals, of course, you always try to believe in your deck, that the deck is going to answer you, that the deck is going to start comfy and start Torres. And then when I saw my starting hand, completely brick because no comfy, no VIP pass or no Torres, I was sad. But then something I try to teach to my students when I do coaching is like you need to try to forget that things because it doesn't help you anymore, right? So I was like, okay, I lost game 1 without even playing, right? But I will still focus, still 2 games remaining, so I will still try my best in that 2 games remaining, still focus even losing 1 game without playing. So yeah, I guess my advice is even if you break or you have a misplay or something, if the dream is still alive, just, follow it and play your best. Yeah, thanks to that I could won the last 2. And yeah, the Roxanne moments for sure. Like game 2 and game 3, I guess both times he took the first prize. So my only way to come back is Roxanne and try to trap something in the active with custom catchers or cross switcher, I guess the name, or escape ropes, right? Well, it actually worked because then my Charizard is really tank. So if I can kill the Snorlax with the Charizard, then he maybe struggles to kill my Charizard back, right? So that was my win condition. Like, okay, I lost game 1 because of breaking. Game 2 and game 3, he took the first prize. It was everything against me in theory, but I still need to play my outs and I still need to check my prices and okay, what I have, what can I do my best, and it worked, yeah.
Yeah, even though he took the first prize, you got to do the first Roxanne, so it definitely came through there. And you mentioned you do a bit of coaching, and I guess for you, what's the one bit of advice you give to anyone who's not been to a regional before but wants to give it a try?
I recommend everyone to play. This game is really fun. The community is amazing. I always say that I want to play Pokemon forever because since I started playing, I never have any problem with anyone. I always had a lot of fun with my friends, even with people that I know. So if you're at home or at work watching me right now, my advice is try to play. You can even play for free on TCG Online or TCG Live soon. And then attend your first event. You will have fun a lot. You will get some experience, and I definitely recommend that if you can, play, because one day you will be the winner as me today.
Al, thank you very much for this amazing interview. Before we do go and give you your prizes, I do want to ask you one last thing. Is there anyone in particular, any communities, maybe communities back home you want to shout out?
Well, too many people to shout out. I especially want to thank all the people that are always supporting me, no matter what, because sometimes when you do well, right, and you are kind of famous in Pokemon and you normally do well, everyone, loves you and wants to stay with you. But I want to thank especially the people that when I do bad in tournaments and I don't make the 2 or I have a bad result or I don't even make any points, I want to thank that people that in the good and in the bad things, they still text you, they still cheer up you, they still with you. That's the energy I need when I have bad moments, right? So I want to thank especially that people that support me in these rough times for me, because the last results, and yeah, I want to thank my family, my friends, and everyone that actually, my sponsors, and everyone that actually made it real. So yeah, thank you so much.
I want to thank you for being an amazing competitor, an amazing final, and for now, we'll give you your prizes. You've got so much to gain here. Your play mat to start with, and you've got that medal there. So Pedro, the regional champion in Warsaw, congratulations. Thank you very much, Pedro. And I'm sure I'll see you again in the future at future events, and good luck with all your future tournaments. And that's it. We're done. We're finally finished with Warsaw. You've been all amazing at home. I hope you've had an amazing time watching the stream here on Limitless. And this has been an exhausting but incredible event. Thank you all for watching. Enjoy playing Pokemon, and we'll see you next time.